What's going on, my good peoples? It's Friday, I had a long day at work, and I don't feel like being bothered. I'm in the mood for something different to eat, but I want to keep it simple at the same time, so I'm gonna do two things I like: cabbage and ground beef. Let's get started. We got a half a head of cabbage, a pound of ground beef, 8-ounce can of tomato sauce, 1 red pepper. Now this is a small one, so I used the whole thing. Equal parts of a green pepper, a quarter of an onion. Now I had a large onion, so I used about a quarter, but if you have a small onion, I'd say use half. Salt and pepper to taste, tablespoon of garlic, tablespoon of Cajun seasoning, 1 habanero pepper. I use this just for flavor, but if you like the heat, man, enter at your own risk. A tablespoon of tomato paste. I squeezed the life out of what I had, which was about a teaspoon. Sometimes you gotta work with what you got. So let's get started with the process. That top layer that's on the cabbage, I tend to take that off. It just never looks good to me. And then secondly, I mean, hands been all over it in the supermarket. People's moving stuff around. You don't know where that stuff been, so take that top layer off. Try to be as sanitary as possible. I recommend a half a head of cabbage for this, even though I cut a quarter, as you can see here. But the cabbage should be the star of the show here, man. So I would go with half. I didn't put enough, so that's my recommendation. The green pepper, this is a large green pepper, so I cut half of it. This is a small one, I recommend a whole one. But for me, half was good enough. And see, this is a small red pepper. I pretty much cut the whole thing just to make it even, And then this was a large onion, again, that I think I said that earlier. And I went with a quarter of it. Remove that skin off and that top layer of the onion. We don't like that stuff, man. Get rid of that. And then we just go ahead and start our cutting process. It's not rocket science. We start with bigger pieces, we cut them down to small pieces, cut them down to smaller pieces. You know what I mean? There's no method to the madness, as you can see here. This layer here, this white layer that's on the peppers, I tend to cut that off because I feel like it leaves a bitter taste to me. So I just remove that. This isn't the best technique to remove the stuff. I mean, seeing my mom's in the kitchen with a knife, man, she's like a wizard, you know what I mean? She could cut this stuff, she'd be done in like 30 seconds. But for me, I gotta take my time, And who cares? At the end of the day, we just trying to eat, man. We just trying to get through the process, This is the final result of what I got, So cut them down to about this size. And then let's go on with the cabbage. I cut the cabbage down in thin slices. It really doesn't matter, because cabbage wilts a lot in the pot. I typically just do this because cabbage just, even though it wilts a lot, it takes a lot of space in the pot. Initially, when you're putting it in, it could take up a lot of space. So I just cut it down so that everything fits in the pot nice and neat, Again, it's not rocket science, just trying to get it done. And let's get this thing going, man. I went in with 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil. I guess it's a good time to say I tend to use a 93.7 beef, which is pretty lean. Some of you guys might work with an 80-20, which, pretty much means like an 80% lean, 20% fat. I go with a 93.7, so it's pretty lean, it's pretty dry, which is why I went with 1.5 tablespoons. If you're doing an 80-20, I'd recommend probably 1 tablespoon. We just try to keep things as healthy as we can when we can. Now that our oil's been in the pan for about 1.5 minutes, you get a little bit of that smoke coming off the pan. It's a good time to drop that meat in. And again, man, it's not rocket science. You'll hear me say this a lot. As you can see, we're getting that nice sizzle. We just break down the meat, We don't do nothing too crazy, just break down the meat. You start with big pieces and keep working it until it gets smaller and smaller to the consistency you like. You might like it a little chunkier, you might like it a little more broken down, But anyway, it's been cooking for about 1 minute at this point, so it's a good time to come in with about 1 tablespoon of garlic. At this point is when I come in with my onions too. I come in with the onions early because I don't really like my onions crunchy or anything like that. I kind of like it just in there. You might not even know it's in there. So they break down a lot by the time this process is finished. You don't even really see them. So I add them in and keep mixing it up, man. Break down, keep continuing with the process and working it out. After about 2 minutes, I come in with 1 tablespoon of Cajun seasoning. I just like the flavor, I add this in a lot of stuff, especially when I'm working with ground beef. When we do 1 teaspoon of black pepper, I hit it with 1 teaspoon of salt. I think at the final end result, I ended up with about 1.5 teaspoons of each. But again, salt and pepper's to taste, so you do what works for you. Right? Continuing it with the breakdown process again. baby steps to get to the final destination, you know? That's all we doing. Breaking the meat down, onions is going, seasoning is going in there. It's coming along. Here I am squeezing the life out of this tube of tomato paste. As you can see, I got about a teaspoon out of it, but I'd recommend a tablespoon. Squeezing the life out of that thing. You know, you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes, man. I added about a half of the 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. Now with the tomato sauce, we're not really trying to get a tomatoey taste. I'm just doing this more or less for color. So I go with a tomato sauce that has no salt or anything in it. It's really just tomato sauce. You know what I mean? At this point, it's been about 10 minutes that the meat's been cooking. And it's a good time to come in with the cabbage. And as you can see, like I said earlier, cabbage just takes up a lot of space in the pot. Hence the reason we chopped it up a little bit so it can all fit. So I can close that lid. And you know, you want the meat to kind of like steam the cabbage. Like the cabbage is steaming on top of the meat, and you're getting all that flavor from the meat as the cabbage breaks down, you know what I mean? So that's what we trying to do. So we put that pot on, and we pretty much don't do nothing with it, man. We let this go for about, if you got a good pot, I say let this go for about 15 minutes. But my pot's not that good. I had to come back and check on it, and I felt like the meat was drying up a little bit. So this is about the 10-minute mark, because as you can see, cabbage is breaking down, you know, and this is a good time to mix it up. Start getting everything combined. And I added the habanero pepper a little bit too late. I think I should have added it in when I added the onions, because again, I like the flavor that pepper gives. I just don't really want the heat, because that pepper can get real hot. So at the end result, I felt like it didn't have that peppery taste I wanted, because I didn't add it early enough. You know what I mean? But nonetheless, it was still good. And so we mixing that thing up, and it's a good time now to come in with the rest of our vegetables, our green peppers, our red peppers. Come in with that other half a teaspoon of salt and pepper, like I told you I added before. Again, we do that to taste. This time I just went with the hand, man. I didn't even measure it out. I just felt like it needed a little more. And so, again, if you got a good pot, I don't even think you need to add water. But my pot dries up pretty fast. It's not that good. So I came in with a quarter cup of water, and then the rest of the tomato sauce. And that's pretty much it, man. You mix this up, you add that lid on it. I think I let it cook for about another 30-35 minutes. And this is a good time to get started with the rice. You know, we try to do everything with some time management. This is the brand I'm going with. This time around, we're going with a cup of rice. Don't be ashamed to use your measuring cups, man. Some people make you feel like that's not real cooking because you measure stuff. To hell with all that, man. We just trying to get to the end goal, you know, good food. And I just wanted to show this process too of washing your rice. I think this is an important process. Me being from a Caribbean household, this is just what we do. You know what I mean? I don't know if everybody does it, but this should be done. You should definitely put your rice into I don't know if necessarily a strainer or whatever you have where you can run some water over it. Again, this is not rocket science. This is not the best technique either. But at the end of the day, you just want to let some cold water run over the rice for about a good minute or two. If you look in the sink, you can see how cloudy that water is that's coming out from under the rice. So for me, I feel like it tastes different, and it feels different. You know, I could almost taste when somebody didn't clean their rice, because I don't know, it almost makes me feel gassy sometimes. Maybe it's just a me thing, but that's how I feel. Now with this particular brand of rice, it only called for 1.5 cups water to 1 cup of rice. Some may call for 2 cups water for 1 cup of rice, but for this particular brand, it was 1.5 cups of water. And sometimes I go with a little less than the recommended, about a sip less, because I don't like my rice mushy. So again, just a me thing. We bring the water to a boil. I'm using a small pot because it's not a lot of rice. I put about a half a teaspoon of salt in there. I'm gonna come in with about a teaspoon of butter. You can use olive oil if you'd like to. Stir that thing up. Get that going, get it prepared for that rice. Bring it to a boil. And here we just drop in the rice, man. You know, just slowly pour it in there. Taking my time, not trying to make a mess, as I normally do. And then you just drop it in there. And then what I like to do is, I like to stir the rice up once I drop it in there for about a good minute. Stir it up. As you can see, I'm doing figure eights, Try to get every corner of the pot stirred up, and I feel like that gives the rice that fluffy consistency that I tend to like. And then from there, you bring it to a boil, you put the lid on it, you turn the flame down to low, let that thing go for 20 minutes, and this is what you got at the end. Right? Simple, smooth. This is what we like. I don't like my rice too mushy. I don't like my rice hard. It's kind of right in the middle. You know what I mean? Kind of like how the Chinese food spots be. You know what I mean? That perfect rice. And so here we are, man. This is the star of the show. We pretty much done. Everything nice, cooked up well. Again, I should have used a little more cabbage. I wish I went with half instead of a quarter. But hey, man, nonetheless, it came out great. It's time to plate. It's time to eat. I like the way it came out, man. I feel like this is a good single man meal to make. You know what I mean? It's quick, straight to the point. I'm about to watch the game, indulge in some good food. As you can see, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And that's about it, man. Please like, please share, please subscribe. Until next time, y'all. Love.